You just sang a sermon far better than I could ever preach it. This is what we're about. The title of the lesson today is Visitation. And John is not running out the back door here. He's helping me out here. There's a chart that we're going to talk about here in just a couple of minutes that goes along with the lesson. Maybe help us to get on board with some things here. And we're just happy that you're here. And I mean that so sincerely. If there was a giant mirror up here, it would be great that you could see what we get to see standing up here. With everybody standing up and singing about the greatest commands. All the faces and the smiles and the joy that's going on inside your heart. It would just strengthen me even more. So I'm glad you did that for me to help me get started. Turn to James chapter 1 for just a moment. I want to isolate one verse that this very, very practical book discussions. Again, as you're turning to it, James is, as most scholars perceive, the half-brother of Jesus. So obviously anything in the Bible is going to be inspired of God. All that the New Testament has is for our guidance and direction in Christianity. But I'm a practical person. And I've got to find a way to take what I find in the Bible and make sense out of it. And James just lays it right out there for you. And so he says in verse 27, pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this. It's like, hold it, everybody, underline, highlight, this is what we're about as Christians. To visit the orphans and the widows in their trouble, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. Now that last part we talk about a whole lot, just how we ought to be as Christians, and it's a job, and that's why we talk about it a lot. But that other part is so practical in nature and so vital. It is the encouraging power of a good visit to somebody and what it does for them. How it makes them feel like they're just something special. And that's what Jesus obviously conveys to us. It is a very vital part of the work of the church. Visiting. You think, oh, well, that's just so easy. But everything that Jesus had to say really related to that. We read a while ago from Matthew 25, and we'll come back to that to the end. So here's our goals. I hope yours, as we look at this. And there's nothing different than many of what we already have in mind when we might go out and make a visit on our own. Number one, what we're setting up here, and hopefully will be taken on by everyone, is to help facilitate more visiting than what's already being done. This is not saying, well, nothing's ever been done, because I know. I just bump into people when I'm out and around that somebody say, well, so-and-so came by yesterday and visited me here, and I know a lot's being done. And so this is just to help facilitate what's being done, and to do it in a simple way, by providing names of those people that are in need, and encouraging visits, and that's what the chart's about here. We'll talk about it. The intention is to be simple, to be easy, to be regular about this, so it's going to be up here all the time, this chart. And to be effective. So that's one of our goals. The goal is to give everyone an opportunity to participate. Doesn't matter how old, how young. If you feel like I hardly can get out, don't even have a car. You don't drive anywhere. The goal is to give everyone an opportunity to participate, to make a personal visit, or if you can't get that connection, a personal phone call. Now, it's not to say that that's better than cards. A lot of people send cards, and that's extremely important. But we're looking to have a voice connection, a face connection if possible, in the homes or places where people are in need of just receiving that encouragement. Out of all of this, we're hoping then out of this to not overlook anybody that needs a visit. Because people are doing it, we know that. But possibly some are being overlooked. And so part of that goal is to not miss anybody. And make sure that everybody has a connection. Nobody gets lost. That everybody gets a good visit. And also, you might add somewhat of a negative factor to this on the goal. The goal is not to overload some of you that are already doing maybe more than you ought to be doing. And I appreciate Chris standing up here and saying, let's try a little bit more in 2013. Because Chris and Carrie are one of those that are already stretched in a lot of ways. I know that. And I appreciate the fact that he's wanting to do just a little more. But I don't want this to be an overloading concept. Well, the preacher's out here and it's just, the elders are behind him and they're saying we ought to just do more, give. But we don't want to do that. But we do want to make sure that everybody's on board. Now let's talk about the organization here for a moment. Over here's a chart, and maybe you can see this, and you can't read the names and stuff on it, but there's 4 different categories or 4 different colors up there. And those represent 4 general categories. The top one, the dark blue there, deals with those that may visit our assembly, that live here in town. Now, and our goal is to, of course, go out and visit those people and work on that. And then there's a goal of, there's some category of sick, and then of shut-ins, and then those just needing encouragement. So we got 4 basic categories. And so there are names, cards attending to each name that fit in each one of those. Now, as you come down here, if you'll participate in this today or whenever you get a chance to come by, and you reach in there and you pick up a card on one, there's going to be written on both cards, there's 2 together, an information part. And it's got the name, address, contact information, phone number, and very possibly even an email address if that was left behind for us. That's the contact information. Right underneath that then is the purpose of the visit, whether they've been sick or they're shut in or just need some general encouragement or whatever it might be. So that's written down there. Then there are 2 blank spaces underneath that. One says today's date. So if you pick up that card, you write down the date of that. And then right underneath that it says visitor, and that's you. Put your name on there. Now you take the other card and do the same thing. Fill in the blank on the other side, on the other card, today's date, and your name. Take that card out and turn it sideways and stick it in. We know the first card's gotten picked up by somebody, and that person's going to get a visit. And you go home with a reminder in your hand, I've got this person to go see. And on the back side of the card, there's lines on there, and we want you to use that then for reporting. So we got 2 cards there. Both of them have exactly the same spaces and information on it. One's to be left behind, so we know that that card's been picked up. And the other one is for you to take with you. So you've got a reminder, and hopefully then the reporting will be coming up on that. Now, you've got 2 weeks, basically, of time to do that. That's kind of a general thought. If you can complete it that first week and you want to come back and grab another one a week later, perfectly fine. But we're thinking 2 weeks will help give you time to get to what you need to do to make that personal visit. Now the reporting, as you go out and see whoever you happen to go see. When you get through, you scribble a little note on the back side of that card, or you can send an email to the church address or mine, email address. But right on that, just kind of how the visit went. It was a great visit, so-and-so, they were encouraged, and they asked for prayers about thus or so. And so, great. And that gets brought back. Now, if you bring in the card back, we're going to have a little box that'll go along with that. You can just drop the card in there. And see, out of all this, once things get going on this, there won't be need of anybody really operating the system other than just setting it up. So you just walk up, I'm going to go visiting in a couple of weeks. Let me see whose name's up here, or I'll take this card right here. You put your name on it, and you fill it out, and you take off with it. A couple of weeks later, you come back and you drop it in the box. And we'll take care of it, making sure that everybody's seen, everybody's taken care of in that process. Now, one more part about this, as far as organization is concerned, is very possibly we can't cover everybody or think of everybody that needs a visit. So if you think of somebody and you'd like to make sure that person gets visited, then let John know, scribble a note down, or Marvel, or Dennis, one of our elders, or myself, just scribble their name down in contact information if we don't know it, and say, this person needs a visit because, and just hand the card to them. And maybe it's already on the sheet, maybe it's not, but we'll get it out there. And so that's what we're looking at. Now, if you've got the organization out there, I want you, if you get a chance this morning, to come on by and take advantage of it. We'll have a couple people down here to kind of help you to work through it if there's any difficulty with that. Probably isn't much of that. But here's some suggestions to go along with that. As you think about visiting, and I think about what Jesus told the apostles when he sent them out on the limited commission to start with, described in Matthew chapter 10, he sent them out by twos. He didn't say, you go here and you go there, but you two go over here, and you two go over there. So go in twos. It's just a good thing. It'll help some who don't drive. So team up with somebody. Say, hey, I've got a visit here and I've got a person. Would you go with me to go see so-and-so? Makes you a little more responsible to follow up with that commitment. So you grab the card, and there's a little bit of encouragement that goes along with that as you share that time together. So that's number one. And also make you feel a little more comfortable that you've got a coworker along with you. So go by twos, if you can possibly do that. Number two, visitors that come into our assembly. And that's one, and we have some visitors here today. And there's some from out of town, but these are going to be the in-town visitors. Now, if you live in Paris, I want your card because I'll need about 2 weeks to go visit over there. And you have, of course, an apartment out back that you'll have to put up somebody to stay a while. But most of this is going to be in-town visiting. Talk to a variety of people in different churches that have different visitations going on. And one of the things that really clicked with me that the church had tried a variety of different things. It's something they've got going now. Is if they have a visitor, my daughter's involved in this, she said, I bake up some special little cookies or brownies or whatever. She said, and then I go visit the person. If you call them ahead of time and say, we want to come visit you, no, don't bother. Plus it makes them feel like, well, they've got to straighten up the house and organize everything because somebody's coming by. You know how we are. And so we don't want to have to go through all of that. But here's the thing. You take the little bag of cookies, homemade brownies or whatever, loaf of bread, and not Columbia or Wonder Bread, but a nice homemade thing. And you go over to the house and you ring the doorbell and you say, hey, we're from Central and we know that you came and visited us this past Sunday or whenever, and we just want you to know we appreciate it. And here's a little token of how much we appreciate you. And by the way, next Sunday we've got thus and so going on, and we sure would like to have you come back and visit. And if there's anything that you want us to do as far as praying for something or whatever, we sure want to note that down. And please come back and see us. And you leave them right there at the door. Unless they really insist that you go inside, don't go inside. And it leaves them feeling like, well, they cared enough to come by. And luckily, they didn't ask to come inside because the house is turned upside down and the kids are with them. But it makes them feel good. Now, that's one way of doing it. Another way is that they also can call up the person and say, hey, well, I saw you the other day and we talked some in the assembly. I'm from whatever Central Church. And if you come back next Sunday, we'll go out and grab something to eat together. So you make a personal connection there and you tie it in and you go out to eat. So there's two options there for those that are visiting. Now, students have some cards too, by the way, because they have people that come and visit. And some of those, when they fill out a card, leave an address behind. So you pick that up and work your plan out on how you want to do that. But make sure you do that. Now, besides those categories, there are some that just aren't here all the time. And we want to make sure to follow up and visit with them too. So if you choose to go visit somebody that's not presently coming and go on this, then remember that you're there to encourage them along. Nobody's sending anybody out to take a Bible in hand and beat somebody over the head with it because they missed church for a few weeks. But what we're after is making sure that that person knows they're missed and they're wanted, they're cared for. So we go with the heart and mind that that's what we're about. That we're going to try to find out, second of all, what's happening in your life. Because people don't just drop out without something going on. Something's going on. So what's going on? Is there anything deterring you? Something that Central can help. Something that I personally can help. And so you take that in mind as you go and you're visiting these people that need that special encouragement. So find out what's going on. And then in that process, when you're there with them, be sure that you have a prayer with them. And that might take place with a lot of different people, whether you're visiting a sick person, a shut-in, or whatever. You might even have a special passage you feel like sharing. Now, this isn't a mission to go out and preach to anybody, but if you're talking with someone and maybe a person has been shut in for some time and they haven't been to services and ages and would love to be here, but they talked about this Bible verse last week, or there's a favorite psalm I've been reading here, and I want to share that with you and have a prayer with them if you can do that. And so those are things to do. Now, in all that we're doing here, what we're doing is striving to carry support and prayers to people that need it. That encouragement along the way. I saw a little video clip here of the cat and dog way of doing visiting. Now, this really wasn't about visiting, it was on TV, but being the preacher's mindset, it quickly connected to visiting. There was a golden retriever. Obviously, the mama of the golden retriever had this little puppy. And they're standing at the top of the stairs, and the little puppy was just looking off and trying to decide whether it could make that giant step down to the next step, because the puppy was this big and the step was that big. And so the retriever kind of goes down a couple steps and turns around and looks. And the puppy takes a couple steps, and the retriever comes back up a little bit, the mama retriever, and coaches it like, you can make it, come on, and they get down the steps eventually together. But that's the doggy way of doing it, and that's the way I like to do it. The other one, where they had a picture of two cats, and they were at the top of the stairs in an attic, with one of those little fold-down type ladders that come out of an attic. And one cat was kind of parading back and forth in front of the stair, trying to decide whether it was going to do it. The other was just kind of hunched over watching what's going on. And as the cat kind of part way off the step, the cat that was up behind her reached up, pop. I laughed at it. We don't want to do it the cat way. We want to do it the golden retriever way. We want to say, these are the steps that we're going to make together. We care about one another. And I'm going to back up and go through this with you because we care. So we're going to encourage, we're going to support, we're going to share passages, we're going to do what we need to do. And all that we're after, what we're trying to do is seek to understand what's going on in that person's heart. Being shut in all the time is not a fun thing. They're lonely. Let them know you care. Let them know you're trying your best to understand. Maybe they've fallen away and they've not been here some time. But what's happening? What's going on? We seek to understand where they're at. It's not a threat. It's what can we do for you type of visit. Now let's talk about some passages here. Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. Paul, as he's wrapping up this letter, says, brethren, if a man is overtaken in a trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness. Gives us some guidelines there. Considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. Doesn't explain exactly how, just be mindful. We're all human. Bear one another's burdens, verse 2 says, and so fulfill the law of Christ. That law we just sung about a while ago, the greatest commands of loving one another. It's important and vital for us to understand that we have a vital work of strengthening spiritual needs and helping to carry burdens or to lift it. And that's what we're about. We do it for one another. Everybody's in need of it in one way or another. Whether we attend services regularly or we haven't been here in a couple of years. Whether we appear to be so strong and cleaned up and organized or whether we just barely can drag ourselves in. We need some spiritual strength. And we all have burdens. Every one of us. Even those elders, yeah, they got it. Tough guys, but they've got it. Strong men in the congregation and strong women in the congregation, they have their burdens. And we all need it. So we're about that as a church. Number 2, our visiting is felt by Jesus. Now this passage that was read toward the beginning of our service here from Matthew 25, when Jesus himself talks about the judgment scene, and he talks about us being separated on the right and the left, and he said, and here's what's going to happen. We're going to weigh, as it were, on the balance, if you did or you didn't. And then it gets down to basics. I was sick, and you visited me. And half the group are going to look at the master and say, but Lord, we don't remember you being sick and doing that. But he says, as much as you did it for any of these, you did it for me. Now, of all you that are parents out there, you know exactly where God's coming from. Because if somebody comes up to one of our kids and puts their arm around them and says, you know, you are really special to me. Parents are standing back just feeling like, because I feel that as a parent when my child is commended, applauded, or whatever. And so Jesus is saying, whoever you choose, even the least out there, the most unworthy person, I feel it. There's a reason, if no other reason, to do it. Because God feels it. We're caring for His people. Besides the fact that we have this vital part of our work to make sure that we do this for one another. Because there's going to come a time that we're going to be on the other side. And we're going to need that. Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Old Testament passage here. Solomon, in all of his wisdom, writes in verse 9 this: 2 are better than 1. Seems like there's a commercial out there with some little kids. And what's better? Bigger or smaller, you know? Well, Solomon says 2 are better than 1. He's talking about us as humans. Because they have a good reward for their labor. 2 of them do. For if they fall, one will lift up or help up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him out. That's sad. Again, if 2 lie down together, they'll keep warm. You ever get out to those cold football games? And you kind of start huddling. You don't even care who you're sitting next to. If they're warm, you just slide over a little closer to them. If 2 lie down together, they'll keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Spiritually speaking. How can one be warm alone? Though one may be overpowered by another, 2 can withstand it. And a threefold cord, adding an extra person in there, is not quickly broken. What I'm seeing out of that is that God never intended for us to stand alone against Satan. And he is out there to take us down. That is a real fact. And the only way I'm going